Hi everyone, this screencast is a demonstration of question 4 from exercise 5.05 in the Nelson QMaths textbook. So there's question 4 sitting there. We have 4 years worth of data for a variable, doesn't identify what our variable is. We have to deseasonalize the, we have to find the seasonal indices, we have to find the trend. The first two steps, part A and B, are going to be the most complicated. Once we've done that, part C and part D, making predictions, won't be too difficult. So let's see how we can use Excel spreadsheet to do most of the hard work for us here. So I've set up my data table here, exactly the same data from over there. The first step is to find the year average, which we will do with the formula average. So remember to start with an equals sign, highlight the cells containing the data, and then the first year 2014 has an average of 275. We will just copy those down and we have our averages. Lovely. The next thing I want to do is work out my indices. Once again, I'll need to have 4 quarters, so I'll just take those headings, and I'll need to have the 4 years worth of data, so I'll take those headings. Now, to work out a seasonal index, I will have the original data value, so in this case 272, and I will divide by the index for that year, so 275. Now, I'm thinking ahead to when I copy this formula across the cells. I definitely want cell B4 to update into C4 and D4 and so on, but I do not want F4 to move across. I want column F to remain in place. So if I put a $sign in front of F, that will lock column F. Let's just check as I copy this over. And if I click onto this one in the formula bar, you can see that it has updated to the second data value, but it's still using the year average in F4. That's exactly what I wanted. Now I should be able to highlight all of those and then using the copy handle drag those downwards. Now let's just double check that that one worked. Yes, it's correctly gone downwards to cell B5 for 283, and column F is still locked at column F, but number 5 did have a $sign, so it's updated by going downwards there. Now let's check, say, this one. Happy days. It's the blue cell, which is the raw data, is copying across, and this one is staying fixed in column F. So these are my indices for each of the quarters across the year. But of course, I want to find the average index. So here I go. The average of all the quarter 1 indices will be given by that formula. And now if I copy this over, I've got my Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 index based on all of the data. So that's lovely. I have found the seasonal indices. That's step A of the question. I might just put part A there at the top, so I got that nice. Now I'll move to part B of the question. Part B says to find the trend. Well, in order to find the trend, I'm going to have a time series, aren't I? So I will need time, and I prefer to put time in years, and then I'll need the values, and there's no units for those because they didn't tell us what they were. Thinking about these times, this data point, 272, will be the first value. In fact, I can grab those, copy, go to there, and when I paste, I'm going to do a transpose, so it puts them as a column instead of a row. I'll keep doing that with my raw data. Now the little cell borders are a bit off, but I'll fix that in a minute. Transpose, and the last one. Transpose. And let's fix those cell borders. So no borders to clear all that mess, and then just put a border around the outside. Now let's think about the times. That first number of 272 that was the sale, if it was sales, for instance, that was the data collected at the end of the first quarter 2014. So at the end of March. Well, we're not really, our time then is the number 2014.25. And I'll just make sure that has enough decimal places to show. So 2014.25 represents what the year value is at the end of March, at the end of that quarter. That's where the number 272 was collected. So the next one would be 2014.5. That's the June quarter. Quarter 2 is sometimes called the June quarter because it ends on the 30th of June. Now, once I've got a couple of these, I can just copy them down, and Excel continues the pattern nicely for me. I might even just block them off in groups of 4 to make it easier just for us humans. It doesn't matter to the computer, just for us humans to see what's going on. 4 data points per year, 4 years worth of data. Now, I will note that these are the raw data values, and before we find a trend, we really need to de-seasonalize the data. I might just move that across a little bit, give myself a bit of space, because I'm going to have to apply these indices, aren't I? So, first thing I want to do is copy those, remembering that those cells contain formulae. I'm just going to pop down here, and this one is to paste values. So those are now just numbers with all of those lovely decimal points. Even though they're not on display, they're still in the memory, whereas these cells are formulas. Now that I've just got the numbers, I can do the whole transpose thing. There it is, and that's index 1, 2, 3 and 4, matching quarter 1, 2, 3 and 4. And I'll just copy them to the second year and to the third year and to the fourth year. So these are my indices. Oops. Whoops. The average, remember, they were the average indices. So I'll just make that pretty good. Now, in order to de-seasonalize, I need to take my raw value and divide by the index. I'm just going to have to pause there for a moment, everybody. Okay, sorry about that. Here we are back again. So I've just done the de-seasonalized value for the first data point, and if I copy those away, I'm happy with that. Again, I think I might put a few little boxes around the place just to make things easier to follow. Certainly faster than doing this on your handheld calculator, but still worth being careful, paying attention to detail, and making sure the trouble with things like this, or the trap, is that you're going to end up making a silly mistake, but because the computer does all the numbers for you, it's hard to pick that up. Now I'm going to plot, what am I going to plot? I'm going to plot those 3 columns. My mistake. I'm going to plot the time and the raw data, then I press the control key and highlight the 4th column, the de-seasonalized data. I don't want to plot the indices. So inserting a scatter chart, just the one with the dots. And it is a little bit funny looking at the moment, but we'll soon fix that. So I'll make that a bit bigger. Might just have to move my question down there out of the way somewhere. Okay. So let's look at this. Now our first series, the blue one, that was the raw data. So if I click onto the raw data and I go to format, I can use this thing that looks like a bucket, and there's no line there at the moment, but I can make a solid line connecting those dots. Perfect, just the way I wanted it. And then I think I'll be happy with that, so I'll leave that alone. Now, it's very obvious now that I've added that line in there that we've got quite strong seasonality in this data. So remembering first, second, third, fourth quarter, big dip there. So there's a spike in the second quarter and a dip in the fourth quarter. first, second, third, fourth, same pattern. Spike in the second, dip in the fourth. And likewise for the other 2 years. Very strong seasonal changes going on. The deseasonalised data are these orange dots. Now I don't really want to put a connect the dots line between those. What I want to do with those, I'll come across to here and I will add a trend line. So I will go to more options and I will ask for the trend line to be displayed on the chart. Now it's rather small, but that's okay. I can increase the font size and I can even put a little bit of orange background so it matches the orange data points that are being used there. There's my trend line. So that's Y value, of course, would be whatever my value thing is, and the X value would be time. That's the other point, is I should put some labels there. Now in the absence of anything more instructive, I'll just put value because that's all the question told us. But down here I can definitely put time, years. If I was really good, I'd probably change this to read raw data and deseasonalised data on the legend, but for the purpose of this, I'm just going to move on. Now that is my trend. That is my, when the question, wherever I put the question over there, when the question said to find the trend, literally they are talking about this equation here. It's the equation of the least squares linear regression line through the deseasonalised data. Now we have to use this information to make a prediction at the end of June 2023. So 2023 is way beyond the end of this. I'm going to have to do a calculation, and the calculation is basically the reverse of what we've done so far. So for part C, the first thing I'm going to do is make a note that the time equals, and it's 2023, and it said, let me just check the question again, the end of June. So the end of the June quarter is halfway through the year. So the time value is 2023.5. Now I'm going to use that in my formula to make a prediction. So and this would be the value from the trend line, which is a deseasonalised value. I'm just making some little notes here so I remember what I'm talking about. So that deseasonalised value, I would have to use the number 5.1287 from my trend line, multiplied by 2023.5. In fact, I could just click on that one if I wanted. Plus, sorry, my mistake, the formula was minus 10,055. There is my prediction from the orange. If that orange trend line continued, that would be the value halfway through 2023. But I need a raw value. I need to undo the effect of the seasonal trends. Now remember up here we did a value divided by the index. We're going back the other way. We will need to have this multiplied by the index. And the index we need is the second quarter index. That's the number 1.021. 1.021. Alternately, I could have clicked on the cell there. And when I do that, that's my prediction for the raw data value at the end of the June quarter in 2023. That's a long way ahead of where our data is collected from, so I'd be a little bit skeptical about the accuracy of that. Now part D will be done in the same way. Part D says what would the value have been at the beginning of October 2008. So first I have to think about the time. Well, it's 2008 point. Now the beginning of October, so October, November, December is the beginning of the fourth quarter. That's really the end of the third quarter. So it's 3/4 of the way through the year. And I'll just change the decimals to be enough. Now the rest of this is pretty much the same as these two steps. I will want to do first of all a value from the trend line, 5.1287 multiplied by the time, subtract 10,055, and then I will need to re-seasonalize the data. So it'll be the value multiplied by. Now this one, remember, was at the end of the third quarter. So it's the number there, the third quarter index. And that's my answer. I really think that if we're predicting this far ahead, we probably should round those to whole numbers rather than have those decimals there, because there will be a certain amount of estimation involved. We're predicting into the future. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but that's the process to follow. So this has been a bit of a long one, but it shows you a complex question involving deseasonalizing data, creating a model, the trend line, then using that trend line to make predictions in the future and re-seasonalizing those values. Thanks for watching.